Hello everybody, it's Calxiyn here. If you guys enjoyed this video, remember that you guys should be patrons over on Patreon or join our Discord server. So today we are talking about how Yang is the real chosen one. This is a paid Patreon video, not by Mega Shadow Dragon.
Oh, thank
But this is another patron's effort to try and erase the harm of Mega Shadow Dragon. So this is from Aaron. So Aaron has basically the theory, because RWBY has been built up to be this sort of chosen one type character who will save the world, right? And RWBY is all about breaking archetypes, right? And so, like, we thought that, you know, Weiss was a bitch and she had more to her. We thought that Yang was sort of like a party blonde, but she had more to her, you know? She had to take care of RWBY from a young age and had all this emotional trauma. You know what I mean?
Yep.
Exactly. And so they are all about breaking sort of these archetypes. So RWBY has the chosen one archetype, but basically this is the idea that they'll break that. So what if she can't beat Salem? And so Aaron's argument is that if the Silver Eye warriors are so powerful, they would have already beat Salem already, basically, because clearly Silver Eyes doesn't mean an instant victory, because it's implied that, you know, Summer was killed, and that Summer didn't even make it, like, past the gates, you know? Like, Hazel's dealt with Silver-Eyed warriors before. It hasn't been Salem, it's been Weave, you know, like, Hazel and then the others. Like, they didn't even get past the front gates. You know what I mean? So clearly the Silver Eyes doesn't mean instant victory. And it doesn't mean that necessarily RWBY is our only hope, right?
It could have been that they just didn't have enough of them.
Enough Silver Eyes? You think, like, Silver Eyes in mass would help? But if Silver Eyes are genetic, then if they're dying out, that's another weakness, right? And so that's what Aaron is saying, that the Silver Eyes are not all they're cracked up to be.
They're just not fucking enough.
Yeah, exactly. And so
You should procreate more.
This also goes with RT not going for the classic
really
Trojan one,
because
chosen one
Silver Eyes
trope.
also gives you impotency, so you know, no babies.
So not Ozpin, and it won't be Ozpin who's the chosen one because he's already failed, right? So it won't be RWBY and it won't be Ozpin. So basically what Aaron thinks is that it won't be Jean, it won't be RWBY, it won't be Ozpin. Aaron, basically says, let's look at Team RWBY. Blake won't be the chosen one because her enemy is Adam, right? Weiss's enemy is her family. And then there's Yang. So Yang has already been there for RWBY. She's always had RWBY's back. If RWBY falls, Yang will step in, but Yang doesn't have Silver Eyes. She doesn't need them. Yang's semblance is to get stronger with every hit. To deal back damage twice as strong. And Yang questions things now. She's not impulsive anymore. Yang wasn't afraid of the giant Salem. She didn't even flinch. So basically, and based off of what she said, right? She said that she's not gonna run away when Salem comes after them, right? And so basically Aaron is saying that she is special, and even RWBY said so, like when they like at the beginning of in the beginning of volume 2 when she got like hit or whatever by Roman's bot, you know, by the robot, that Blake got worried about her and RWBY said no, she's special, right? And so Yang has always been the toughest of the four. Yang has lost so much because of the war and with Salem. For her to beat Salem, it would be justice. Yang said that she would be waiting for Salem, and this is my next theory or request. Is Yang the one? And Aaron said he doesn't want to hear everyone else be like, oh, but it's RWBY, this all works in the current canon, so I think it's actually possible. And I actually agree with this, because it does two things. It breaks the trope, right? Because we kind of got this implication, like, RWBY, you have Silver Eyes, like, you're the chosen one. But I think what Ozpin fails to understand is that magic hasn't necessarily worked. And we do hear Ozpin say that you need a simple, more honest soul, right, to sort of beat Salem. But that doesn't strike me as necessarily RWBY.
She seems like a simpleton.
Because I think that Yang is the honest part. You know what I mean? Because Yang is the one who stands up to Raven and says, no, Raven, I'm not running away. You know, Yang is the one who kind of tells it how it is. And I know he didn't mean honest as in, like, literal honesty. You know what I mean? But that's sort of, like, that rings more true. Like, Yang isn't necessarily simple, but I think that she is simple in terms of not having magic. Right? And so if Ozpin means simple, more honest soul, as in a non-magic user per se. You know, like someone who is not like us, because we have been reincarnated over the decades, right? Like, let's go back to the basics of humankind. That's kind of what Ozpin is sort of trying to get across in this line. Would you agree? And so I think that like,
be an interpretation.
For it to be Yang, I think would be very compelling, just because, you know, maybe the reason why Ozpin has been losing the war is because he relies too much on magic instead of, you know, the human beings that the gods really entrusted with the relics and with, you know, making choices between light and dark to an extent, right? And so I think that for it to be Yang instead, because Yang is ready for Salem while Ruby is still afraid of her, that Yang is really could be the chosen one archetype here in this way. And I think that with what we've seen from Yang's story, like, obviously all of the girls are treated more or less, like, equally in terms of screen time, except for Ruby. Like, Ruby's gotten a little less development, but, like, Blake and Yang and Weiss. But the thing is, like, you know, Yang really seems like the main character, like, when you think about it. You know what I mean? Like, you know, Ruby is her sister that's coming to the school. Blake is her partner fighting against the White Fang. Weiss, you know, is, like, it's Yang's, like, family issues that are sort of in the center of everything, and that's kind of her connection to Weiss, that they make that bond in Volume 4, talking about their family. So Weiss is her, like, other teammate, that they both, you know, like, that Yang and her are both getting over these issues. But you understand what I mean, right? Like, the story seems to naturally center on Yang when you really think about it in a very strange way. Like, excluding Volume 4.
Center around Team RWBY, seeing that's sort of the name of the
Well,
show.
yeah, obviously, but I'm saying, like, if you separate all of the Yang parts, I guess, and, like, sort of look at them, it's sort of like, I don't know how to explain this, but if you separated all of the Blake parts, it wouldn't necessarily make a coherent story all the way through. Or the same with Weiss, right? But I think that if you separate Yang, you still get the entire story, if that makes sense. Right? Whereas you separate RWBY, it doesn't do that. You know what I mean? Because, like,
I would say that makes RWBY and them more integral to the plot, not less.
No, and I'm not saying that that makes them less integral, but if we're talking about a chosen one sort of type, right? Like the main, you know what I mean? Like, you are the chosen one, you carry this story, right? Like, when you think about it, like, all of the girls sort of have this connection with Yang where they may not have a connection to each other necessarily. Like, RWBY, like, at the beginning bumps into Blake, but RWBY and Blake have barely, like, had a conversation with each other. Or that Weiss and Blake don't necessarily have, like, the same connection, but, you know, Yang is RWBY's sister. And Yang has this connection, like, with Weiss that we see in Volume 5. And Yang obviously has this connection with Blake. But I couldn't say that the other characters have such a strong connection to each other as Yang does with all three of her teammates. Does that make sense?
I guess so.
That, like, Weiss doesn't have the same connection to Blake. Or Weiss, you know, like, Weiss has a stronger connection to RWBY, definitely. But, like, a strong connection with Yang seems to be the theme of the day. You know what I mean? And so, like, RWBY has a strong connection with Yang, Weiss has a strong connection with Yang, Blake has a strong like, they all have a strong connection with Yang, whereas if you look at a character like Blake, if we're gonna, like, argue for the like, Blake doesn't necessarily have a strong connection with Weiss or RWBY.
I mean, I'd argue that she
you know
has
what
a
I
strong
mean?
connection with Weiss.
Well,
that, like, they
had that one yeah, they've grown quite a bit, but I'm not saying, like, that their stories are necessarily intertwined,
I mean,
right? But Yang is sort of intertwined with everybody else's stories. How, though?
Because
with Blake and Weiss.
On the same team.
No, but, like, I'm saying that outside of, like, the team, I know it sounds weird to say outside of the team dynamic, but, like, with each other, I don't mean... That's not a strong connection. Just because you're put into a group at school doesn't mean that you're gonna have a connection with the people you work with. Like, that's not strong enough on its own. I'm talking about, like, in terms of how we've seen them interact,
about that
right?
They were picked together in school and more that they're all kind of caught in fighting the same witch.
Yeah, but they weren't, though. That's the thing.
Yeah,
like, they weren't at the beginning.
They were in different parts of the world, so,
like, and that's what I'm saying, is that they weren't that connected, but Yang seems to be sort of a beacon to connect everybody. Because, you know, like, she has a strong connection to RWBY, and that's the only reason why Weiss and her were going sort of, like, to Mistral, was because, like, Yang was like, listen, RWBY is there, we're gonna go meet up with RWBY. You know what I mean? And then the only reason that sort of Blake was sort of getting involved was obviously for the White Fang stuff, but that White Fang stuff had to do with Adam, and then Yang has that Adam connection. Like,
and Adam is connected to Salem, and all those people want to fight Salem, so
not,
that has more to do with them trying to fight the bad guy.
He's not connected to Salem, though.
Yes, he is.
No, he's not. He's connected to Cinder, and Cinder's connected to Salem, and Cinder's dead. So that's like, I don't think you understand exactly what I mean. Like, the Alice plot point we haven't seen yet with Weiss and her family, but I'm saying that in all of the other plot points, Yang seems to be, like, a central, like, character that's going on right here. Like, she connects all of the plots together, because, like, she has that connection to Adam, and that connection has, like,
But her connection, like, she's only connected to Adam because she's connected to Blake, who's connected to Adam.
Yeah, and I'm saying that, like, her connections with other characters are almost the most important connections. Like, are the strongest connections, right? Like, her connection with RWBY, like, as being her older sister, is the strongest out of all of RWBY's connections to other people, probably. I think. And so that's what I'm saying. Weiss's connections to Yang is probably only countered by her connection to RWBY, right? Like, that's her strongest connection.
I mean, I'd also say that RWBY is very connected with Crow.
Well, Crow, we're not talking about Crow being the chosen one.
Well, yeah. I mean, I think, like, unrelated
and then Crow has no connection to any of the other girls, so congratulations, you did a great job for what I'm trying to argue.
Well,
right?
I'm not saying that
Blake,
I'm trying to...
again,
I'm
has
just
that
saying
connection
that just
to
it happens with other people. My thing with her being the chosen one is that you still don't... Like, people were complaining that RWBY hasn't gotten as much character development.
I don't think RWBY deserves it. No offense.
Okay.
But I think...
Here's the thing, Cal. People were just talking about a show. No need to, like, insert yourself as an ideology here.
I'm saying that... But, like... I think it would be more interesting for RWBY's growth and development to realize that she isn't the one, that her sister is the one, and she needs to support that.
We still don't know a lot about Summer's death. We still don't know a lot about Silver Eyes shit. Like, there's plenty of room to develop.
And that's the other thing. Like, Yang is that connection again. She's the only one that is connected to Summer that has actually seen Summer, apparently. Okay, well, I'm talking about the four girls, you silly! Oh my god.
Okay.
RWBY, like, never, doesn't even have memories of her mother, apparently. And then Yang, again, she has that connection to Summer, she has that connection to Raven, she has that connection to Crow, she has that connection to Ty, whereas, like, you know, RWBY's connection to Raven and her connection to Summer is very weak. You understand what I mean? Like, I'm talking about... Not that they don't have any connections at all, but the strongest connection. That, like, Yang is, like, 99% connection, like, with Raven in terms of what we, like, saw at the end. Whereas RWBY is, like, a good 20%. Like, she talked to Raven that one time, you know what I mean? And that's what I mean, like, with Blake, she's a good 99. Like, with RWBY, she's a good 99. With White, she's a good, I don't know, like, 85. Like, let's just put it at that, right? But I'm saying that all the other girls don't have that high a score with integral characters, let's say. You know what I mean? Like, RWBY's largest sort of connections are, like, in terms of, again, like, the girls, like, Yang is probably at the top, if only by rivaled by Weiss, I suppose. And then even in terms of, like, the villain party, if you want to call it that, there's Cinder that she has that connection to, but that's it. Whereas Yang sort of has Raven, and then there's the Adam angle. Like, Yang just has more angles. Like, they've put her in a very interesting place to be very intertwined with different areas of the story.
I guess, but I think it's still young, and I think still they're
I mean, I know it's still young, but this is a theory based off of Volume 5, right? And so even if this turns out to be wrong later, like, this is a theory with the info that we have.
I mean, but you also know that there's going to be, like, over 8 more seasons. So
yeah, things could change, but for now, Aaron wanted to talk about the here and now, and this is the here and now that I think is
okay,
good.
That's possible.
Yeah. Like, again, I don't think you understood
I think you're
what I
just,
was saying.
no, I get you, but I'm just thinking
Like,
that maybe
you
you're
know how
counting
in
your chickens before they hatch.
You know how in Sims they have like a little
No, I
relationship
don't know.
bar?
I don't know.
Anyway,
'cause I never
so
played the Sims game.
you can get a mod and hack it so like you're at the top with everybody. And so that's basically how I imagine Yang. Yang is at the top with everyone. Like in terms of the relationship bar, but like RWBY has some halves and she has some folds and like all of that stuff. And yeah, I'm just glad this theory wasn't about John. Anyway, guys, if you guys enjoyed this video, you guys should join our Discord server, become a patron.
Blonde you're more connected to.
Yeah, exactly. Become a patron over on Patreon and join our Discord. Did I say that already? Maybe. Anyway, it's okay, and we will see you later. Bye, guys.